Morning, all. Okay, so yesterday, Gary Bettman making news, getting people talking as he talks about league revenues. It's exciting stuff. And it is kind of exciting if you're an NHL owner. So I've seen a lot of people saying, Bettman's ruined the league and they should fire Bettman. The league's going to make 5.2 billion this year. Has made, I guess, has made 5.2 billion is the estimate. And it could end up being higher than that. They're even saying that's a conservative estimate. So if I'm an owner and I'm looking at record profits, or at least record income, if you want to say, well, that doesn't mean profits are higher. Okay. So let's just say record money coming in. I'm probably not getting rid of the guy who I feel is as part of making that happen. And that's a whole other debate for another time. If I had a dime for every time somebody in the comments says, Gary Bettman, as long as he's in charge, I'm done watching hockey, and then those same people still are commenting on videos weeks, months, years later because they're still watching hockey, I'd be rich. I don't know how you track that though. So what we've seen happen is a lot of discussion of a lot of things related to league revenue. The salary cap artificially staying at $81.5 million throughout was definitely, to me, it was kind of a surprise. I thought they'd scaled salaries back, and I say that because they've done that previously. They've scaled salaries back coming out of a lockout, and I figured, salaries would probably get scaled back and then would come back up to reflect the revenues coming back into the league. But that didn't happen, so it stayed artificially at $81.5 million. And so the owners wanted some sort of certainty with that, some sort of financial aid with that, which comes out of the players' pockets because it's a 50-50 venture, meaning the players get 50% of the revenues, the owners get 50% of the revenues, and the owners weren't making the same amount of money. The players should not have been making the same amount of money, but they were. So the escrow money is money that's taken directly off their paycheck, and they might get it back. They may not know for a year. They may not know for longer than a year whether or not they're going to get that money. So 17.2% is what was taken off of salaries this season for escrow. Next year, it's 10%. 10% is the amount. So that means that all the players would get an increase in pay of 7.2% because there's not as much getting taken off. And then it drops to 6% from the 2020 or 2023-2024 season through the 25-26 season. So, 2023, 2024, all the 20s drives me crazy. Anyways, it drops to 6%. And so eventually escrow goes away would be the idea, or at the very least it becomes a very small number relatively to the numbers it's been over the last few years. But that's with the idea that the owners have that money and then they tell players what they're getting back. And the last couple of years, the expectation was they're not getting it back because the league's not making as much money, which has led to some understandable concern from players and just all this other fun stuff. Now, 2018-2019, the last full season, the league made $4.6 billion. So if the league's making $5.2 billion now, that's excellent. And again, it lines them up with where they were in 2019-2020 before everything got shut down. And that $3.6 billion in lost ticket sales in 2020-2021 means there's a deficit that the players owe. So the other good news of this, if you're a player, is this half of this, the 2.6 billion goes to the players, and a lot of that is going to pay off what's owed by the players. It's a large amount of money owed by the players, but a $5.2 billion league means that money's going to come down faster, and then the salary cap will be able to go up that much sooner. And there's some expectation that once that deficit is paid off and the players don't have to worry about it anymore, that the salary cap could go into the lower to mid $90 million range. So it could go from 84 million to 94 million overnight. Don't worry though, I'm sure there's a GM out there that'll give out a couple of $10 million contracts to balance that out as soon as it happens. That seems to be the case. So when we look at league revenues overall, 2005-2006, the league makes $2.27 billion. 2010-2011, it made $3.09 billion. 2015-2016, it's $4.1 billion. Well, $5.2 billion this year shows you there's some extra money coming in now. And it's a big money league. So even though there were some dark days a couple years ago and some discussions about whether or not every team would make it through that financial hardship, they all did. They all did. And the league honestly is going to take this record revenue. I would think that Bettman would sit down with the board of governors and say, look, there might be some concern about the Coyotes playing out of ASU. Here's a wheelbarrow full of money for you guys. This is from the revenues. You guys can roll around in it. Make sure it's back in the wheelbarrow when you're done. And I'll come in and we can talk more about the Coyotes. Oh, you don't care about the Coyotes situation? You just want to roll around in the money? Got it. So there's definitely a lot of good that can come out of this for the NHL and for the players. I've seen people saying, well, why don't they just lower ticket prices? It doesn't work that way. I've made that argument for decades. Oh, they've got money here. Well, that means they can lower ticket prices. No, that just means they get more money. So the Seattle expansion definitely helps. You've got 32 teams now instead of 31 bringing in money. And that building in Seattle was pretty darn full. The ESPN deal, giving the NHL $400 million this year. So that would take them from 4.8 to 5.2 billion, right? And that may very well be why that's seen as a conservative estimate for how much money the league made. And then you've got the other ad revenue, and this is where fans start to get a little bit concerned, right? So you've got the extra ad revenue. Clearly, the gambling ads are pricey. When you see as many gambling ads as you do, it means they're paying the most amount of money for advertising. They're winning those bidding wars for the ad spaces. And so it's a lot of money coming in because when you go to gambling sites, you're guaranteed to make money, right? That's why they're advertising so much. The helmet ads. Helmet ads, it all adds up, right? And then next year, we also get the single ad on each jersey that the players wear. It's not supposed to be on the retail jerseys that you and I as fans would buy, but it would be on the on-ice product, right? So there are extra revenues that have come in this year. And again, with the jersey ads coming in next year, that's more revenue coming in. And it's less money the players are going to owe. So this coming season, we're not going to see that big rise in money being made, but we're going to see this coming season a league that's getting itself financially into a very strong position. And this can only be good too, because one thing that was being discussed was that if this lingered and if income for the league was impacted negatively season over season, if this became more of a problem, that it could affect the next CBA negotiations. Usually, if a league's making a lot of money and players are seeing their paychecks getting bigger and bigger, there's less of a chance of seeing some kind of a lockout take place. Unless, as was the case back in 2004, the owners wanted to put in a salary cap and the players didn't see the point. They felt that the free market was perfectly fine. The market sets values. And why are teams spending more than what they can afford to spend? Because that's a form of gambling too. You would see these bidding wars, and then teams are just not making enough money to cover all their salaries. And then you also have the problem where some teams could make $1 billion and another team might only be making $100 million. So it really becomes a situation where you can't afford to pay what that other team can. And that's certainly still a case in the NHL. I don't get the feeling like it's as dramatic of a difference now as it was back before we had a salary cap, but it's still there. There's definitely, if we didn't have a salary cap, we would see the Leafs, the Rangers, the Red Wings, I would think Montreal probably as well. Your original six definitely would be spending a lot of money on salaries. Philadelphia too. You might see $100 billion or $100 billion. There you go. $100 million for each team in terms of their salaries. That would not surprise me because back, if you look at the early 2000s, they were spending a lot of money at a time where league revenues weren't in that range at all. So I could only imagine what you could afford to offer a guy. Some of these teams could probably afford to offer a guy $20 million a year. But again, the salary cap is meant to make it so that it's fair, so every team can pay the same amount. And we'll see how things go this summer. But the plan seems to be from the NHL, find as many ad sources as possible, generate as much revenue as possible, and that makes a lot of sense. For all of Gary Bettman's faults, and there are definitely faults, we've seen those over the last couple of years. He is not great at things like human emotion, but while the human emotion side of things may not work out, and the compassionate side sometimes is a little bit lacking, but the businessman is there, and his ability to help craft a league that makes a lot of money is there, and that's why he has a job. This is essentially what his job was to be when he was hired for it, was to make the league a lot of money, stabilize the league too, because at a time when he came in, there was a lot of instability in terms of markets and which markets actually worked and which one didn't. And we've got that now. We've got stability. I don't need to do videos on which teams are going to move because nobody's moving. And you know, it's odd because for years there looked like, well maybe, but right now, no. The one that people would mention, Arizona this, Arizona that. But if that building comes through in Tempe, and it looks like it may very well come through in Tempe, they're not going anywhere. It comes with the letter of agreement that the team will not be moved for the next 30 years. So that takes that away. And Florida was first in the league this year. And so you have to think that the Florida Panthers brought in more money. If Florida can be really good year over year, that'll generate more interest, more ticket sales, and then Florida's good as well. So you don't need to worry about moving Florida. So I don't know who's going to get targeted next by hockey fans if Arizona and Florida are no longer on the let's move them train. But Carolina used to be on it as well. I haven't seen Carolina mentioned in a long time because they stabilized their market and found a way to find some actual success. And so it definitely looks like we'll find that elsewhere too. But hey, you know, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.